Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content. Please tune in. Welcome back to the Richard Sherman Podcast, presented by our friends and partners over at Breitling. Mitchell, I saw them releasing more and more team-themed watches. I saw the Bears. I saw the Kansas City Chiefs. They look clean every single time. I can't wait to get my Seattle Seahawks one. But this Monday night game, it was something. It was football. Great win by the Miami Dolphins. They needed it. Tua Tagovailoa knocking off more of the rust. Still didn't look like his old self. Had a weird play in there where he tried to tackle a guy after a turnover, where he got his head involved and got kneed in the head, and everybody was worried. Every time he gets touched. I mean, at this point, I think everybody would be better off if if there's a turnover, just go ahead and jog off the field. Nobody's upset about that. Nobody be mad. Nobody'd say anything. They'd be like, okay, I get that. Keep yourself safe. But he's a competitor. He wants to try to help his team. What'd you think of the game?
Richard, I thought it was pretty much anticlimactic. What it did impress me, though, is the Miami Dolphins. Frankly, I thought they would come in here and roll over pretty easily to the LA Rams. I expected the LA Rams to get hot. Like, I really believed in this team. I thought they could really, truly compete for the NFC West. Tonight, they showed me otherwise. But Miami was a hungrier team. I mean, right off the jump, they go out early, they take advantage, they get up to a 10-0 lead, and they never took their foot off the gas. Richard, I mean, Tua, if he can get back to his, how he was last year, do you think that the Dolphins can make a late season run here?
Well, it just depends. If their defense plays like they did tonight, looked unbelievable, especially on third down. They were putting pressure on. They were blitzing. They were sprinting around. They were flying around the football. They gave up 15 points, but it really didn't look like they even gave up that much. They didn't give up a touchdown in the game to Matthew Stafford, who had been hot throughout this season. He threw for 293, but they kept him out of the end zone, got an interception, forced another fumble from Kyron Williams, who had been having a really good season, rarely coughs the ball up like that. So I think if this defense can get hot, and give to him more time to just keep getting his feet under him, keep connecting with his receivers, give Mike McDaniel more time to come up with a plan and formulate a plan for both Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane to be just more involved in his offense. It's just a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things that need to come together. But they got the second easiest schedule in National Football League left. They play the Patriots, who look a lot better. Drake May, still rookie quarterback, and if this defensive line and his defense is bringing pressure the way they did this game, he'll struggle with that. They got the Raiders that we just saw what the Jets had to deal with in Arizona. Houston is going to be a tough game, and you got the Niners. That's going to be a tough game for them, and the Browns. I think that's a winnable game for them. So there's a slight chance they can make a crazy run, and if they get hot and make a run, they'll be dangerous in the playoffs. But I think that's a long shot.
It's going to come down to the Texans in those Niners games. They're going to have to take at least one of those games and then run the table. It shall be interesting to see. Meanwhile, the LA Rams, we talked about it. They let down. They were only 3 of 12 on third down. What do you think went wrong for them tonight? Because they just did not look like themselves at all out there.
Well, it just an off game, especially at home. It just looked uninspired football. I thought Matthew Stafford played well. I thought Puka Nacua did his thing. Cooper Kupp looked fine. We talked about the interception, and we talked about the fumble. Kyron Williams. I mean, I think there was a possession where there were 3 possessions in a row where there was turnover, and it just wasn't great football. It looked like a short week game, not a long week game where you're playing on a Monday night and you even get one extra day. And it looked like the Rams were the away team and not the home team. Miami had the long trip. They had the long trip, across the country, deal with the time change, et cetera, et cetera. But they played really well. But I guess it's just ups and downs of the NFC West right now. Every team has had them. You look at the Arizona Cardinals, they've been up and down. You look at the San Francisco 49ers, they've been up and down. You look at the Seattle Seahawks, same thing. So it's just a really unpredictable conference, but a huge win for the Miami Dolphins, at least for their confidence. My guy, Deshaun Shedd, who's one of the DB coaches over there, we're happy for him, friend of the program, happy for Mike McDaniel. and his staff. They really needed it. It's tough in the National Football League to go on a losing streak like that, especially when you lose your quarterback. But they were able to do it. We'll see how they do next week versus the Raiders. I'm excited about that game. The Rams go to the Patriots. We'll see how they respond after playing a really good defensive game last week against Chicago, and Caleb Williams sacked him 9 times. We'll see what they can do. But I know the thing you're most excited to talk about.
I want to talk about the Detroit Lions, Richard. That's what I want to talk about, because I could not have been more thrilled last night. This team down big at half. I'm telling you, Richard, I said it numerous times. This looked like the Baltimore Ravens game from last year all over again, where they got behind early and just got absolutely trounced by the Ravens. I thought it was going to be a replica of that game. On the road, you're down your left tackle and Taylor Decker, and it really showed, what a stalwart he is on that left side. A lot of people write him off because they have Penei Sewell and they assume, oh, Taylor Decker is still not that guy. He's still that guy, and he showed with his absence. But, Richard, what really impressed me about this team, when Jared Goff probably has the worst game of his career, 5 interceptions, just truly not looking like himself. I mean, I thought he was entering that MVP conversation. I think that ship might have sailed after last night. But for this defense to pick this team up in that second half, not allowing a single point and helping fuel that comeback, this is something we haven't seen with the Lions in years past. Normally it's always that offense and you get these glimpses of potential stars defensively, but it never has come together fully as a unit. And I think what we're seeing right now for Detroit is they've got a lot of pieces, and I think they've got the potential, Richard, to be one of the top defenses in this league once they get Zadarius Smith back, and looking forward into next year with Aiden Hutchinson playing opposite him. But Richard, Brian Branch, and Kirby Joseph, I mean, they got to be 2 of the top 5 safeties in the league. I mean, you've played in the secondary for a decade. Tell me, what do you think about this Lions secondary? Because I saw Carlton Davis with 2 picks, and I know you're a friend of his. But to me, it's like it's all coming together as a team.
Yeah, it's definitely coming together, and I can't tell you I was not worried about your Detroit Lions in the Honolulu Blue. The fans said we are calling it wrong. We're pronouncing it wrong, Mitchell. Not Hana, not Hana. Honolulu Blue. I told you, fans. We read the comments. We can correct things. We can be coachable. I think that defense played incredibly. I think the secondary played well. You asked me before the season, what do I think? What do I know about Carlton Banks? And I told you he's a lot better than people think. I mean, Carlton Davis. I thought Carlton Banks. You know what I mean? Carlton Davis. And I told you, he's a lot better than anybody gives him credit for. He had a bigger hand in that Super Bowl run that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had. He's a corner that can follow the number 1 receiver, be really handsy, be really tight in coverage, be really irritable throughout the game. And in this game, he got his hands on a couple footballs and made huge plays, and is a big reason why they were still in this game after Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. I think this defense is only going to go up. You talk about Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. They're young. Your guy, Terrion Arnold, a guy you have really high aspirations for. I think this team, this general manager, they're just developing a really great culture. And I'm telling you, guys that just work hard and have the right attitude and consistently approach the game the right way are going to have success. And that just seems to be the culture they're building there. They're playing hard for one another. They're not being deterred. I think the true test of a really good team and a really strong competitive team is how adversity affects them. And you saw after every interception, and there were a lot of them, obviously, this defense you didn't see the finger pointing, you didn't see the arguing, you didn't see the chaos that you would expect. Human nature. And so 5 interceptions, that's a lot. It's a lot of turnovers, a lot of pressure on the defense. You did not see any blink. You just saw guys say, okay, this is going to be a bigger challenge. Okay. Giving us more opportunities. They were relishing the opportunity to go out there and show how great they could be. That's the testament of a really great defense and a great team. And I'm sure the offense appreciated that. That built this Lions team up in a way that I don't know if any win this season probably helped galvanize the team more than this one, because you just had to watch and the offense was helpless. You know what I mean? It's not your day. You're having a bad day. You're having a awful, terrible, crucial, very bad day. And all you can do is watch and hope and really cheer your defense on and hope that they can stand up and they show up for you. And they did. And I know those guys, just with knowing the guys they have in that locker room, knowing the guys that are in Detroit, they went over to their defense and said, man, we sure do appreciate y'all picking us up today. We sure do appreciate y'all. I know y'all had a hard job. We put y'all in really bad situations, and y'all stood up and y'all helped us get this win today. Thank you so much. And there's nothing that brings a team together, Mitchell. So your Detroit Lions they're on a high horse, Mitchell.
It feels good to be on that high horse, Richard, for once. They have a leader in Dan Campbell. This guy reminds me of Leonidas from 300. You know, the guy is just a natural born leader of men, and he's taken these Detroit Lions to whole new heights. I mean, just the calm reserve being down significantly at halftime. He talked things into existence right out of halftime. He's talking about how they can't just they got to make a bunch of plays. They're not going to regain this lead in one play. And sure enough, the next play was Carlton Davis with the interception. You know, you got a guy like that, something we've never seen here in Detroit in Dan Campbell. You got to love to have him. But another crazy story about this team, Richard, is Jake Bates, the kicker, who I'm sure you would love to have on the San Francisco 49ers. He's perfect on the year, and I don't want to jinx him, but Richard, this guy's story is incredible. I don't believe he kicked a field goal in high school or college. I think he was just a kickoff specialist. He gets out of college, is working as a brick salesman, and is kicking balls on the side. And his wife tells him, hey, you know, why don't you try harder and start training? So he trains and plays for the Michigan Panthers last year in the UFL, Rich, banging field goals from 60 yards in Ford Field. And now he's on the Detroit Lions, winning games on the road in prime time from 50 yards plus. Richard, when you have this guy, this weapon at your arsenal, and you go back to the NFC Championship game last year, I don't know if the outcome is the same. Jake Bates is a huge weapon for the Detroit Lions to have, unlike Jake Moody over in San Francisco.
Oh, Mitchell, I didn't want to bring him into it. And I this is why people get mad at kickers, because you can find them at a brick sales shop. You can find them in a brick sales shop as they're practicing kicking on the side at their house. And you can replace an NFL kicker with them, and he can go perfect in the National Football League. Or you could take a guy who's never played football in his life, and he learns to kick the ball in a few months. We've gotten guys from Europe to come over, from Australia to come over. So that's why I get really frustrated when people are arguing about holding kickers accountable, and like, you don't want to rattle them. You don't want to. It's a replaceable position. And I'm really happy for Jake Bates. Really impressive story, Mitchell. I'm really excited to see how his season, sounds like he's on his way to a Pro Bowl or All-Pro season, especially if he continues like this on a really competitive Detroit Lions team. Happy for you and your boys. That's a really, really incredible story. But it just goes back to show, like, there's no reason to draft a kicker high. There's not when you can catch them in a brick sales shop. Not when you can find them anywhere on earth. You don't need to draft them very high. And so that's why when people are like, man, you don't want to get rid of them. You want to let them. No, you don't. If a kicker's not making kicks, get rid of them. Like, you can find better. You can find better, and you can find better pretty quick. They replaced Jake Moody for a couple weeks when he sprained his ankle. The kickers combined go 5 for 5 and 2 for 2 50-yard field goals. Not that they were going to continue that the whole season, but they were kicking the ball pretty well. It's a position that you can come out of nowhere and do the job at a high level if you're focused and you're dedicated and you're driven. It's not like, oh, you can just get anybody to do it, but Jake Bates.
There we go. The NFL season is rolling along, and contenders are starting to separate themselves from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this NFL season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Fade to the corner of the end zone, running back breaks through the line and gallops 60 yards for a score. We don't care how they get them. We just want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings is the best place to do it. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player scoring a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Richard. That's code Richard for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food, no matter what you're craving. From 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings. Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now for game day. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Well, Richard, this team is hot as they come. I mean, they've been winning. They've been blowing teams out lately, but they win this one, overcome adversity on the road against playoff-bound team in the Houston Texans. I think they proved to America that Detroit is for real. If there was anyone skeptical about how good Detroit was, I think they saw it last night. What are your expectations for this team? I mean, where is your head at as observer of the Detroit Lions? Do you think a Super Bowl should be the expectation in Detroit?
I mean, it should be. It should have been coming into this season. You looked at the NFC Championship last year, had a huge lead, ended up losing the game, but they deserve to be there. They earned their way to be there, and they're built the right way. So I think having Super Bowl expectations coming to this season were realistic. They're living up to the expectations. They're living up to the team that everybody built them to be coming off the NFC Championship. So there's nothing new happening here. They're playing really great football defensively. Offensively, they were playing amazing football, just scoring points at a high level. This was a game where things didn't quite go their way, and you wondered how they would respond, and they responded beautifully. They found a way. Great teams find a way. We're seeing that with the Kansas City Chiefs literally every week. People are like, they should be 6-4. They should be this and that. Well, they're 9-0 because guess what? Great teams find a way, and they're finding a way to win. But one team I am concerned with is the Houston Texans. They've lost 3 of 4 after starting hot. But the caveat to that, in my opinion, is just the lack of weapons. You lose Nico Collins, who was leading the league in receiving yards at the time when he got injured. You lose Stephon Diggs, who you always thought would be your safety blanket if Nico Collins went out. They just got beat up at the wrong time. You lose Joe Mixon for amount of time with a sprained ankle. And now they got Joe Mixon back. He's had a tremendous impact, but your passing game has suffered because now all you have is Tank Dell. You have Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz. You got a couple guys, but Noah Brown, but not the guys that you expected to have coming into this season. You lose Stephon Diggs for the season with an ACL injury. Nico Collins, I thought he was coming back this game. He had practiced during the week, and then they sat him and said he was unavailable. That was a surprise, and you can see it in the stats from CJ Stroud. He just hasn't been as great without those guys, and I challenge you to look at any quarterback in the National Football League without their top weapons and see them be successful. You looked at Jalen Hurts when A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were out. Different quarterback. You look at Brock Purdy. When Deebo and Brandon Ayuk and his 1, 2, 3 and Juwan Jennings are out, he still threw for 300 yards, I think. But still, off. They lost that game. I think he threw a couple interceptions, didn't have the same rapport. And the same is true with Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, every quarterback, Joe Burrow. When Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are out, he's a different quarterback. It's tough. It's going to be a tougher game. But so that's what's happening to him. But that's it. They need Nico Collins back. They need to get those guys back because it's been really bad, and it's been a struggle fest for CJ since they've been out.
Well, they've got a great defense. I mean, they brought a lot of energy right out of the gates. That Jalen Petrie is a star in the making. It looked like just an ultimate Swiss Army knife everywhere on that field. So the weapons are there in Houston, and Will Anderson did not play either. So they're going through it with the injuries. And as soon as they get healthy, Richard, fortunately for them, They play in a very weak division, and they will be in the playoffs. So if they can get healthy at the right time, do you think this team can make a run?
Well, they got medicine on the way in the form of the Dallas Cowboys at home. Mitchell, that seemed like the fix-all ginger ale for every offense having a stomach ache. It's just been, I think they've been down by 20 points at home every game this season. I think it was some kind of NFL record. I read it. It was just a really bad stat, so I didn't even want to really go too deep on it because I like some guys on that team, and I don't want to talk bad about them. But I mean, it's a bad stat. It's a bad stat to have when you're losing games like that. You're not even in the games. Obviously, Micah Parsons gave him a boost last week. He'll give him a boost again this week. But Cooper Rush is not the answer. I think the Houston Texans should feel really good. I think this game should give them right back on track. Mike Zimmer's defense and his play calling leaves a lot to be desired. These are the same. This is the same defense personnel wise, pretty much. Plus or minus a few guys. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore is in Minnesota. Deron Bland is injured. He had all the pick sixes last year. Lawrence is out, but for the most part, a team that has led the league or been amongst the league leaders in turnovers every single season when Dan Quinn was there, now can't buy a turnover. I mean, an amazing play by Trey Diggs last week, but outside of that, it's very few times you see them getting the football. And a lot of it is shell, vanilla defense, predictable guys see what they're going to get. They really slice and dice it, and I think this will be a medicine game for C.J. Stroud because this Zimmer defense is just so predictable. Either he's running man in a predictable situation, or he's running that quarters look or six, or trying to run three, but they don't know it well enough. So I think that's going to be good. I think they can turn it around. I think they'll be the team as they get healthier. Again, Will Anderson will come back. They'll get healthier. They'll be the team we expect them to be and be in the playoffs, and we'll see.
Let's talk a little bit more about these Dallas Cowboys. This week, Micah Parsons made headlines when asked about Mike McCarthy's replacement options. He says, "That's above my pay grade." Richard, what's your reaction to these comments from Micah Parsons?
You know why it's above his pay grade, Mitchell? Because he
Why is
hasn't
that?
gotten paid.
That's a fair point.
Hey, I guarantee you, if he had gotten his contract, he would have something to say about this. But he doesn't have any security right now, so who was he to talk about with Mike McCarthy? He's still sitting there waiting for his $35, $36 million a year deal that he's going to get, whether it's in Dallas or somebody else. He's played at a high level for a long time. I don't care what you think about him this season or what you feel. He's been an all-pro multiple times, and he'll get his money, just like everybody else did. I know Dallas fans are like, we're having a bad season. How are we going to pay him? It's the price of doing business, babe, or you trade him away. That's not my decision. That's Jerry's. But he's right. It's above his pay grade, and I don't think he should have been commenting on it, and he didn't. But I guarantee you, if he had gotten paid, he might have said something.
Well, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be stuck in a predicament having to pay Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and now Micah Parsons. There might be a decision being made to move on from one of those guys. If you had to pick one, which one would you move on from if you were Jerry Jones?
That's a bad spot to be in because I don't think you move on from either one of them. You got two of the best players at their positions in the National Football League. You rarely hear a situation where you're like, get rid of one. Wait, what? And you're not, you don't have any other guys in line to get big paydays. So you find a way to make it work. You're paying three big time guys. You're paying a quarterback, a receiver, and an end. And you're paying Trayvon Diggs, a corner. And so you're right where you need to be. You got enough money in the space to maneuver, but unless you don't believe in a guy or you don't believe he's a guy that you want for the long term. And I think that's what Dallas is kind of showing by not paying him. They're showing that they don't see him as part of the future, or they're in a wait and see mode that I don't really understand because the price is only going up as he continues to play, regardless of how he plays this well. He doesn't have to be an all-pro this year to get $37 million next year. He doesn't.
He's going to get that money.
He's going to get his money. He's one of the best passers. He's an issue every single time he steps on that field. And there's at least probably 22 teams, maybe 23, that would likely pay him the money. There's a couple that can't afford to pay him, but there's a lot of them that'd be like, okay, so what do you want to do? Now, they probably are like, we could probably get 2 or 3 first rounders for him. Depends on what people are willing to pay. If he gets out there and they say he's available and the market doesn't get as hot as people think that it will, then they're going to have to settle for what they can get, or they're going to have to pay him. And so it's just a weird situation. And I said it was weird before that he waited this long to pay Micah Parsons, but maybe they know something I don't know, like when they went all in this offseason. I still don't know.
We're still all waiting for that big move in the offseason there, Rich. Let's talk about the Bears and the Colts. Both teams are struggling right now, and both teams have elected to stick with their starting quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Joe Flacco. Richard, is this the right move? At what point do you move on from, giving Caleb Williams more time on the bench to take some mental reps? Do you make that move at any point if you're the Bears?
Well, you make it if you have a proven veteran behind him. If they had Jameis Winston or somebody that you thought, hey, they come in and make a big difference and go on a run, and you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe he could show the young guy. If they had Tyrod, I'd feel good about it. If they had who's their backup?
Tyson Bagent, the arm wrestling champion's son, second-year player out of Shepherd, I believe.
No, you go with Caleb Williams. In that situation, you go with Caleb Williams. In the Colts situation, do you put Anthony Richardson back in the fire after you took him out? I don't think you do. Maybe he's learned something. Maybe he didn't. But I think you made the decision to go with Joe Flacco and let Anthony Richardson learn. You stick with that. Joe Flacco, continue to play. Hopefully you play better than you did last game. He had a bad game last game. There's no sugarcoating that at all. But does making a knee-jerk reaction and putting Anthony Richardson back in the game change that? And what if he goes out there and struggles again, and he struggles and doesn't complete a lot of passes, and the team loses? Then you just look, you're in limbo. And so you have to stand somewhere. And I think Caleb Williams continuing to get the start. They don't have other options of veteran quarterbacks that you could trust to really get you through games. If they had a Gardner Minshew, I'd say put Gardner in. If they had somebody else that I thought could get the ball out quick, hit the back foot, like just, run the offense at an adequate, just solid level, then I'd say make that decision. But you don't have that. And Caleb Williams is getting beat up. But again, this is why rookie quarterbacks playing early can be trial by fire. Either it can be feast or it could be famine. And if they struggle, does it really affect their confidence like that going forward? Is this affecting his growth, his development going forward? How is he going to look? You worry about him getting hurt, getting hit, getting sacked 9 times. I got to look at how many times he just got hit and he didn't get sacked. So psychologically, like, is he learning bad habits? Is he getting in bad habits? Is he not progressing in the way that he would if he was able to sit back and learn? And that's the thing that I'm concerned with, but they don't have another option behind him. So yeah, let him play. My favorite tees are from True Classic, whether I'm working out or watching a football game. Their shirts are snug in the arm and the chest with just the right amount of room in the midsection. For fall, they have long sleeve Henleys, waffle hoodies, jeans, button-ups, joggers, and more. And if you're into working out like I am, they have some activewear. You can mix and match clothing to work with your lifestyle. True Classic has premium products at an affordable price. Fall is here, and it's time to step up your game. Right now, you can unlock big savings when you bundle packs. Just go to my exclusive link at trueclassic.com/Richard to save. That's trueclassic.com/Richard. Shop now and elevate your wardrobe today. Did you know that feeding your lawn regularly builds a stronger, more resilient lawn that naturally crowds out weeds? Scott's Turf Builder products provide year-round feeding with essential seasonal solutions for your lawn. Scott's has a subscription plan that makes caring for your lawn easier than ever. They put their expertise to work by analyzing the location, size, and condition of your lawn to create a custom plan for your yard. And they'll ship you the right product to apply at the perfect time. By answering only a few short questions about your lawn, Scott's experts will craft a program that's right for you and your yard. Visit scotts.com to learn more. Feed your lawn. Feed it.
Let's take it to Seattle. The Seahawks made an interesting move this week, cutting their leading tackler, Tyrel Dodson. Richard, what the heck do you make of this?
What I make of it is what I said before. You let Bobby Wagner walk, and again, we talked about this before, weeks before, and the reviews and the comments were mixed. You know, some Seahawks fans were like, "Oh, he's washed, he's this, he's slow," and I hate when people say that because I know you don't know football. When you say he's slow, what the hell are y'all like? What are you watching? Like, I can give you linebackers that run 4.3 that couldn't tackle anything, that couldn't get nobody stopped, couldn't cover a bed with a blanket just because they're fast. Like, I understand age. You know, Father Time is undefeated. Gotcha. But when you have a quality player who brings more to the table than just football, he brings quality football because he was an all-pro. They don't just give those out. They don't just vote for anybody. They don't just say, if they did that, Mitchell, then they would have a lot more all-pros. Then those two guys they brought in would have had all-pro resumes because they just give them out. That's what people were telling me. That's why Bobby Wagner got him. No, that's not why he got him. He's playing high-level football. And so if you're going to need a linebacker to help you with transition and you have an all-pro already on the roster, you keep him. And I thought that was a mistake, and I can go down the list, and it's a long list of mistakes that I thought John Snyder's made over the years, but this was a huge one, and he made it twice. And you said, hey, we're going with the PFF, and PFF's highest and second highest, like, graded coverage linebackers. Like, wait, what? And that's what they were, you know, no offense to those guys, you know, no offense to Tyrel Dodson, and like, that's what they were saying. Those guys are quality players and probably could play. But there's a reason Mike McDonald looked at the tape after a bye week and said, he's the problem. We're cutting him. Not we're benching him and we're going to figure something else out. He says, hey, we looked at the tape, and he said it in as respectful a way as you can. But he said, we looked at the tape. There were some issues in the run game that we couldn't get stopped. It was the most politically correct way you could ever talk this. He should go into politics. But we cut the guy because he wasn't getting it done. And then you trade Jerome Baker away to get a linebacker you wanted. So that was $11 million at the minimum, because it could have been up to like $12.5 million that you spent on linebackers to replace Bobby Wagner that are no longer on the roster 9 games into the season. 9 games into the season. You spent $11 million. I don't know if Bobby's making 7 this year. So you could have spent $7 million to keep a homegrown, like a guy. He already has his house, doesn't have to move, knows the facility, doesn't even have to move his locker. Sure, he has to learn McDonald's scheme, but a guy who knows the scheme, knows his team, knows his teammates, respected in the locker room, respected in, like, I can't quantify that kind of impact and the value of that. And so it was really frustrating then, and now it's even more frustrating to see the moves now, because you're basically conceding that you made mistakes. But you're conceding that you made mistakes in the middle of the season. And so it's just really disappointing. It was disappointing at the end, but I'm not going to stop talking about it because you made my friend move all the way across the country, and I can't get to have lunch with him and have dinner and talk shop because he has to be in Washington. He's having a good time and having a good win. I get to go see him on Thursday. I'm thankful for that. But that's enough. Like, it was a mistake, clearly. And they're admitting it by cutting the guy. They paid him 4. They trade away Jerome Baker. They paid him 7. They paid him $7 million.
You're spot on, Richard. I mean, this team is in desperate need of Bobby Wagner, frankly. I mean, I was going to say a veteran leader, and that is Bobby Wagner. This defense in Seattle concerns me. I think they get DK Metcalf back this week, and that offense gets back up and rolling. But let's just cut right to it. I mean, do you see Seattle as a reasonable playoff team here?
Yeah, I think it's a dogfight. You know, it's a very unpredictable NFC West right now. It's up for grabs. They're going to have to get this win this week. They got San Francisco 49ers, and they got to go to San Francisco or to Santa Clara, and that's a win they need to have, both from a psychological perspective and from a standings perspective. That gets them where they need to be, right on track to control their own destiny. But if they don't, then it gets really concerning, and moves like they just made where you cut your leading tackler, it's giving a little bit of panic in the building. And so hopefully that's not shown on the field, and they go out there and they're able to protect Geno Smith. And I cannot emphasize that enough. He's been hit way too much this season. And I know people are like, he's been off. When you're getting hit that often and people by your feet and you can't step up, he's throwing at weird arm angles, and he still was leading the league in yards. So I think they're going to have to find a way to shore up that protection on the offensive line, find some running room for the run game. Hopefully DK Metcalf is coming back. JSN had a huge game the last time they were out. They're unfortunately in a loss. We'll see what this new linebacking core is able to do, but they got to have this one. This game against San Francisco will be a very telling game.
No question. It's a big one. And let's take it to San Francisco. There was a sideline incident. We talked about it yesterday. Deebo Samuel and Taybor Pepper, or Taybor Pepper, the long snapper, get into it. And, Kyle Shanahan puts this to bed now. He says the sideline incident was blown out of proportion. Richard, where do you stand on this sideline incident?
Well, I stand with Deebo, and I stand with Kyle Shanahan. Like, Deebo was going over there constructively. I'm a captain of this team. I get to speak to guys. If you're struggling, if somebody's struggling, now offense, defense, sometimes you don't talk to guys. You let their captain on their sides handle it. But it's special teams. So it's anybody, and I can go over there and say, and I know as a captain, I'm going over there to say, hey, we believe in you, but come on now. We need it. We got to get it together. And this is the NFL. I can do that. I can challenge my teammate to say, hey, we need more out of you. Lock in. Taybor was totally wrong. First off, you're a long snapper. You don't get to inject yourself in any conversations when a captain of the team is talking. I'm sorry, you don't. You have unless he's cursing or really violently coming after your guy, then you grab him and say, hey, come on now. No need for that. But from what I've heard and what I understand about the situation, some words were said that shouldn't have been said. From a long snapper, you should not speak like that. You don't get, especially if nobody's coming at you. Nobody's sitting there saying a word to you. They're talking to two grown men are talking. This is not somebody talking to a child, somebody talking to somebody that has no power. These are grown men. So if one grown man is a captain on the team and says, hey, I need you to lock in to another grown man, he doesn't need assistance in there. So I thought Taybor was wrong, and Kyle said it in a nice way. He said he thought he overreacted because he thought Deebo was saying something he wasn't. I thought he was overreacting because you don't have those say so. You don't get to do that. Now, other positions, they play a lot of snaps. They get to say stuff. Deebo Samuel plays a lot of snaps, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm out there all the time busting my tail to try to help this team win the ball game. Not that you're not busting your tail, but you don't play enough snaps to speak to me. You do not play enough snaps to come at me in any kind of way, raise your voice in any kind of way. If I'm talking to somebody else and saying, hey, brother, we need more. I don't care if you say you got it. Clearly you don't got it. You missed 3 straight. So to tell me we got this, you don't got nothing. And you keep talking to me crazy, you won't have a job. So that's the kind of stuff where people are like, well, in any other job, this ain't any other job. This not your, hey, in our handbook, you don't put your hands on. In football, I can run through another man's face. I can be as physical as I want to be. And it's a different kind of conversation. Sports in general. You talk about great players, and you talked about Jordan fighting and beating up Steve Kerr in practice. But people are like, oh, well, that's just competitive nature. Do you think nowadays if you heard Jordan beat up somebody in this social media age, it would be blown up everywhere? You saw the Draymond Green stuff.
Yep.
Like, this is sports. It's very serious. So when somebody is making mistakes and costing your team, you can address it to that person, to their face. And I don't think Deebo was coming at him in a very angry or provocative or insightful way. I think he came to him and said, hey, lock in. And Taybor Pepper said he said the same thing. He might have said it a little bit more colorful than that, but still, he had no place speaking. You didn't need to be involved. And so that's why it escalated, because unnecessary ingredients were injected into the situation. And that's how I feel about it. I could not imagine if it was me, Mitchell. I could not imagine, because I would have said something to the kicker. I probably would have came over there and done my best to pat him on the back and said something. But if I'm sitting there talking to Jake Moody or the kicker and being like, man, come on, lock in. We're gonna need you. And somebody came and got in my face, Mitchell, there would have been some furniture moving. There would have been, it wouldn't have just been no mush. I would have been some furniture moving, and then we'd have had to talk about it after the game. And then might have been some more furniture moving, because I don't know who you think you are that you can talk to me. Like, in that way, I do too much. I put too much work in. You don't put enough work in for you to speak in this situation. So that's where I'm at in that.
Respect it. I respect it. Richard, let's go on to the buy or sell segment of the podcast here. We got a handful of them here. The Chiefs are 9-0. They are as hot as they come, and they're winning in unique ways now with the block kick against the Denver Broncos. However, they face the Buffalo Bills on the road this upcoming weekend. The Bills will hand the Chiefs their first loss this season on Sunday. Buy or sell?
I sell that, because the Chiefs are going to be totally locked in. It's going to be a playoff environment. I think they might have overlooked this last opponent a bit in the Denver Broncos. And, while looking forward to this big time matchup, a potential AFC championship or divisional playoff matchup that they're going to face, a team they faced before in the playoffs and sent home. So no, I don't think the Bills will send them to their first loss. I think they're going to be really prepared. They're going to put Josh Allen in some very tough positions, and they're going to find a way to pull it off, as they have the last 9 games. I'd be really surprised they lost this game.
Lamar Jackson, I think he's proven to everyone he's deserving of being in that MVP conversation, if not the front runner. Richard, Lamar Jackson will win his 3rd MVP award this season. Buy or sell?
Buy with as much money as I can put on it, because the MVP award last year, and I talked about it at length, and so many Baltimore fans and Lamar Jackson fans, I guess, were mad at me because I said the numbers just aren't there. You got guys with more touchdown passes and more overall touchdowns and they're like, well, the overall team success should matter. And in this case, it was like Jared Goff, or Mahomes. It's like they're on the best teams right now, but their numbers are nowhere near where they need to be an MVP. And so I would say the same thing. If you were making a case, obviously Jared threw the 5 interceptions, so that's out the window. But before that, people were like, well, he doesn't need the numbers because they're still winning ball games. No, you need the numbers. He's not high enough. He doesn't have the touchdowns to win MVP. I don't care if the team goes, 16-1. If they go 16-1 and he's 10th in touchdown passes, no, he's not getting it. But this year, Lamar Jackson is top 2 right now in touchdown passes and yards. I'd have to go check because we just got stats. But the way he's playing, he has as many touchdown passes this season as he had the entire year, over 16 or over 17 games, but he didn't play in one, but over 16 games last season. And that should tell you the trajectory that he's on. He's on a career trajectory. I mean, he's on pace to throw 40 touchdowns and only like 4 interceptions. That would be a wild, wild season, obviously deserving of an MVP. And he's 2nd in yards. He's tied for 1st in touchdown passes. So you gotta give him the award this year, because you gave it to him last year. You gave it to him last year with 24 passing touchdowns, and I think he had 5 rushing or something like that. So 29 total touchdowns. He'll he'll probably have over 45, 50 touchdowns. He'll walk away the MVP unless their team just tanks somewhere down the road, and I highly doubt that. John Harbaugh's coach teams rarely just struggle down the stretch. I think he's gonna walk away with his third MVP.
Well, you were very critical on him last year when he won the MVP, and not because you didn't think he was a great player, because I think we know you think he's a great player, but his statistics just didn't match up to that of an MVP award winner. And I think they were some of the worst stats, throwing yardage of any MVP winner at quarterback. What do you think has changed, this year for him to have an MVP year last year and then just make that year look like it was nothing? I mean, this guy is on a total different stratosphere right now.
Well, I got a chance to ask him last Thursday after their win against the Cincinnati Bengals. I asked him what was different because I said the same thing to him. Like, people were like, oh, you the difference between you and I is I get to actually talk to Lamar Jackson. So if there was any beef or he knows there's no beef because I'm a huge fan of him. I've been a huge fan of him, and I'm a huge fan of his game. But I'm going to tell the truth. If the numbers are what the numbers are, the numbers don't got any emotion attached to them. They're just the numbers. Just like the tape. The tape is your resume. What you put on tape is what you put on tape. But what he said is he's just got another year in his system, and all the receivers have another year in the system, and they're more comfortable, and they're better. They're filling the scheme better. They're finding the gaps better. He just has a better feel for what the expectation is, and then people are a lot more open when you got to deal with Derrick Henry right behind him, who's also having an MVP type season. So a lot more things are open. The middle of the field for that offense looks incredibly open all the time because they have to put so much attention and so much energy into stopping Derrick Henry. You can't do it without putting 7, 8 people in the box. And when you don't put 7, 8 people in the box, you're not getting him stopped. So it all has led to him having potentially one of the greatest MVP seasons. I mean, he had 43 touchdowns. His first MVP season was an incredible year. This year, he may surpass that. I think he'll probably have 45 or 46 total touchdowns by this season's end. I can't wait for him. MVP 3 is what they're saying because it'll be his third.
He deserves it. He deserves it. Let's go back to Dallas. We've already talked about him a little bit tonight, but it's all doom and gloom in Dallas, Rich. It doesn't look like this team's going to be winning many games down the stretch here. It's safe to say they're probably going to be picking in near the top of the draft. If you're Jerry, you draft a quarterback in the first round, buy or sell.
Sell it. Sell it. I mean, I like I said, I want to be controversial and say Shedeur Sanders and Deion to Dallas, but it doesn't make sense in terms of team building and what they need. Their offensive line needs a total makeover, Mitchell. They need to go to one of those home improvement shows and just gut the whole thing down to the studs and rebuild it. Because Zach Martin has been great, Hall of Fame career, just like Tyron Smith, they let walk. But it's time to inject some new blood, some Hall of Fame talent in there, and it's hard to find. Not every first round drafted offensive lineman is a Hall of Fame, but you need to do your research and start to restock the cupboards of the offensive and defensive line because that's how championships and Super Bowls are won. You're seeing it again with the Detroit Lions. You're seeing how they built their offensive line, defensive line. The Kansas City Chiefs, their interior offensive line is one of the best in football. Their defensive line, one of the best in football. Chris Jones, one of the best in football, et cetera, et cetera. You see how they're built. And when teams don't have a great offensive and defensive line, they go to the playoffs, even though they might have the most talented specialists and receiving core, et cetera, corners and secondary. If they don't have that D-line and O-line, they're going home. They're going home. You're rarely going to see a team in a Super Bowl with terrible offensive line or terrible defensive line. And so I think they're going to have to use their picks on O-line.
Well, Richard, while you may argue they should use their picks on the O-line, I might argue they might want to invest in some curtains or some window tints for that for Jerry's world, because maybe that's why they're 0-4 at home. And we saw it. CeeDee Lamb relatively open, running across the back of the end zone. Cooper Rush delivers him a catchable ball, and CeeDee doesn't even see it because his eyes, the ball's stuck in the sun. Richard, it's you see it on social media. I'm sure you've seen it playing there. Like, it doesn't look like a fun condition to be a quarterback, cornerback, or wide receiver in, looking for that ball directly into the sun. Buy or sell, Jerry World needs curtains ASAP.
I'll buy it, but I don't buy that being the reason they're losing games, because this stadium hasn't changed that much. They won 17 straight there. And it's not like this problem just cropped up. Now, I thought it was stupid from day one, because I was like, when we played there, I was like, God, you cannot see anything. And I knew, I mean, it's affected Dak, it's affected CD, it's affected everybody. And you can solve it by either tinting it or putting a little curtain over it, for a couple, it's only going to be like probably an hour of the game. But certain games, if the sun is in that position, you got to block it out. I'm sorry, you got to. You got to give your team a chance. And maybe the competitive advantage is when the defense, I mean, when the other team's on offense, you open it. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the NFL wouldn't like that, but yeah, they need to do something.
It's a great idea. It's a genius idea. We got to put you in charge of the curtain squad there down in Dallas, Richard. You're going to be.
Well, right now, Mitchell, the curtain's closing on this team's season.
That sure it is. It sure is.
And for all you gamers out there, get ready, because Call of Duty is back. Forced to go rogue, hunted from within. This is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Developed by Treyarch and Raven, Black Ops 6 is a mind-bending narrative. And unbound by the rules of engagement, this is signature Black Ops. Dynamic moment-to-moment gameplay, including a variety of play spaces with blockbuster set pieces and action-packed moments. High-stakes heists and cloak and dagger spy activity. Best-in-class multiplayer experience. You will test your skills across 16 new maps at launch, including 12 core 6v6 maps and 4 strike maps that can be played 2v2 or 6v6, marking the epic return of round-based zombies, the fan-favorite mode where players will take down hordes of undead, and 2 brand new maps at launch. You can look forward to even more exciting maps and groundbreaking experiences dropping on both multiplayer and zombies. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is a spy action thriller set in the 90s by the end of the Cold War and the rise of the United States as a single superpower. Head over to callofduty.com/Black Ops 6 and get in the game. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, available now, rated M for mature.
Well, Richard, let's talk about Thursday Night Football. It's time for our TNF preview presented by Prime Video. Richard's going to be in Philadelphia this Thursday for a huge divisional matchup against the Commanders. Vegas likes the Philadelphia Eagles by 3 points. What do you expect out of this matchup, Richard? Because early on in the season, it didn't look like this was going to be one that you would be excited to go to, but now I'm sure it's probably one you're absolutely thrilled to be a part of.
When we first got the schedule, I cannot say I was jumping for joy when I saw this game, especially after multiple East Coast trips. We coming off of New York, Baltimore, and now we go to Philly for a Commanders game. No offense, Commanders fans, but you know how it's been. But now it might be the game of the year, at least record-wise. The Commanders are 7-3. The Eagles are 7-2, playing really good football. They're healthy. Jaden Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, on his way to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jalen Hurts, dark horse MVP candidate. Saquon, all-pro running back year, jumping over people. Turning around and jumping over somebody in a National Football League game is absolutely insane, and I don't think we're appreciating. I know everybody was shocked, but he chose to turn around. It wasn't like somebody spun him around. He spun, looked forward, and said, you know what, I'm going to turn around and jump over him backwards. I'm not going to do it forwards. I'm going to do it backwards. I mean, the game is so slow and easy for Saquon. Good for him, because he's having an incredible year. He deserves it. After what New York did to him, let him go, didn't want to pay him his money, watched him for years and didn't see his value, and now they get to watch him have an all-pro year for one of your division rivals. I mean, that's why the NFL is the ultimate reality TV show, soap opera, whatever you want to say. But I can't wait for this game. I can't wait to see what it's going to be, how Marshawn Lattimore adjust to being part of the Washington Commanders? Is he going to follow A.J. Brown the whole game? I would do it because A.J. Brown's one of them guys, and I don't know if it's going to get him stopped, but at least put your money where your mouth is. I think this offense, Jaden Daniel is gonna find a way. Scary Terry's gonna find a way to find some success. This Philadelphia defense has been better this season with Vic Fangio and the guys. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Quinyon Mitchell looks to be one of a really budding star at the cornerback position. Is just sticky every single week. If you ask the receivers that go against him, they hate him, and that's the greatest compliment you can get as a corner, especially a young one. And he has the right attitude. He has the right approach. He's playing the game the right way. I expect him to continue to play at a high level. I want to see that battle between he and Scary Terry, and our guy, friend of the program, Darius Slay, also continuing to play at a high level. I'm looking forward to that. This should be a good game. Both teams top 5 in scoring offense since week 5. It's going to be a shootout, I hope. But as soon as I say that, it's going to be a 9 to 10 game watch.
Do you think both teams are going to be making the playoffs at the end of the day?
Oh, no question. I think both of these teams are playoff teams. And I think both of them are going to go to the playoffs and make some noise. I don't know if they'll win the games, but I don't think teams are going to be happy to see them on their schedule, home or away.
Yeah, I mean, the Commanders, they continue to impress despite the loss last week against the Steelers. This is going to be one to watch, no question. That's this week's TNF preview presented by Prime Video. Make sure you guys tune in this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time to catch Richard and the gang in Philadelphia, where the Commanders play the Eagles. Richard, my personal favorite time of the weekend, the power ranks. And, I know we had a deal. As soon as the Chiefs lose, the Lions can take over the number 1 spot. But I mean, come on, man. Like this Detroit Lions team backs against the wall on the road against a team desperate for a win, down 23-7 at half, comes back, wins with the walk-off. Richard, they're becoming America's team, but can they become Richard Sherman's team? Do we have the Detroit Lions at 1, please?
Mitchell, that was the most Kansas City-esque, at least for 2024, win that they've had this season.
Totally.
Where there was no possible way they should have been winning that game. And, of course, they won it. But you just looked up, and there were 5 interceptions, and they were still only down 10. And you were like, wait a minute, that's not adding up the way math usually does in the National Football League. But no, Mitchell, no. It was not good enough. A win they shouldn't have had. The third time a quarterback's thrown 5 interceptions and won the game since 1991. First time since 1991, but only third time in the history of the National Football League. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I'm happy for Detroit. Again, beautiful, beautiful time to be a Detroit Lion. Their fans, you guys deserve this. But you're number 2. Kansas City Chiefs, number 1. But moving up in my power rankings, Buffalo Bills 3, are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because I wanted to put the Commanders, but they lost. I wanted to put Houston Texans, but they lost. I got to put Pittsburgh. Their defense is playing well. Russell Wilson's playing well. The run game looks better because the pass game looks better. George Pickens is doing MMA moves out there. Second career potentially. Yes. I like it. They're waving the towels. They're taking over stadiums. Pittsburgh is a team that has to be in my power rankings, Mitchell. When you see terrible towels waving in opposing stadiums, you know Pittsburgh is back. And they are back in a big way, Mitchell. So they are 4th right now in my power rankings.
Respect.
And do I want to put the Eagles at 5? I do. But since the MVP right now, put Baltimore.
Wow. Okay. I mean, what does Philly got to do to jump into your power ranks? Because watch Philly, they're the team that scares me the most in the NFC. What do they got to do to prove it to you, Rich?
That's a great question. They got and they got to keep winning convincingly. If they beat the Commanders convincingly, they're going to probably be in my power rankings next week, and I'd have a hard time not putting.
Richard, this concludes week 10. We're motoring through the season. Sign us off, my friend.
Thank you guys for joining us on another Monday night summary. It's been a great week of football. Hopefully your teams won. If they didn't, keep hope alive. Even if your team is doing terrible, the draft, you might want to start doing a little bit of research on the kids coming out of college. There's some really talented kids. Maybe get your hope, find some hope in that. I know the holiday season is coming up and it's time for Thanksgiving. It's that month, but I'm a Christmas guy and I'm already playing Christmas carols. So I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. Get in the holiday spirit now. Make sure you get in the holiday spirit. Play a couple great Christmas songs for yourself. I need everybody to feel love this holiday season. Thank you so much for joining us. Hit that sub button if